Hey y'all, welcome back to Kiki About TV. I'm Ward.
And I'm Clark, and today we'll be discussing Married at First Sight, Season 14, Episode 6.
Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kiki About TV. Also follow us on Instagram and TikTok. All right, so there's so much to cover from this episode, but we must always begin our Kikis with a drink. Clark's drink is a virgin. Mine might be a little something else. But either way, please check our TikTok for the ingredients on how I made this drink. So, toast to episode 6. And
See. Okay.
let's jump right in.
Okay. All right. So who are we starting off today with? Ward.
Chris and Alyssa.
Okay.
So Chris and Alyssa are waking up and they are speaking or showing Chris. And Chris is just talking about how he's still feeling like he's alone and he has a wife that's not quite stepping up into her wifely duties.
Mm-hmm. Then he says that Alyssa wants him to fulfill his husband duties, but she doesn't want to fulfill her wifely duties.
Interesting. I tell you what, it sets the tone for what we see throughout this episode, but we'll definitely talk more about that as we go along.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, next couple we see is Mark and Lindsay.
Okay, and so we see Mark and Lindsay waking up, and I was surprised, Ward, because I didn't know how this was going to turn out after their last spat. I really thought Lindsay was going to be like majorly petty, but apparently she was not. She said after an hour of their argument, they sat down and they talked about the romantic dinner. Lindsay said that she feels like they can talk about anything, and Mark decides to say a prayer, which is the first time I've seen anybody just pretty much just pray and talk about how they want their kids to be raised. Do they want their kids to be raised in church, and how many kids they want?
Yeah, it was refreshing to see Lindsay, turn in a different direction and not just be that volatile all over the place, Lindsay spazzing out. And also she sat there and she let Mark lead. She let him talk about, she let him do the prayer, and she also let him talk about his idea for raising children. She gave her input on, how she definitely does actually want her children to be raised in the church and all of those things. And they could agree. And so it was nice to see.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then we move on to Elijah and Katina. Mm-hmm. And so Elijah and Katina decide to go horseback riding, and Elijah says that he and Katina are from the city and they don't ride horses. And Elijah says that Katina says that she feels like Elijah needs to take down his energy, which is something that we have been talking about on all our reviews, that he's just over the top.
Yeah, Elijah is always on 10. And, he also is doing a lot of pushing with Katina as they start to learn each other. And this case was no different. It's horseback riding. It's a first for both of them. Elijah's stance is, yes, it's an adventure. I can conquer this. This is something new. Katina is like cautious, afraid, like horses. I'm a city girl. We don't do this. But she was willing to give it a try, but she really wants to go at her own pace. And here comes Elijah just pushing the envelope. Shouts out to the horse Champagne. Katina was doing her best with Champagne, but she was afraid. And I think that it took a moment, but finally, as you say, Clark, Elijah started picking up what Katina was putting down to like, hey, just support me, back off. This is really makes me fearful. Work with me a little bit. And so.
Yeah, and Katina says that she doesn't want to be pushed. She says she almost felt like she wanted to punch Elijah. And Elijah says that he's going to push Katina. So I wonder how this is going to play out throughout their marriage, because I definitely think that he has to be able to be aware of her nonverbals as well as her verbals, and know when is the best time to really kind of interject what he feels like she needs, and allow her to have time to kind of adjust to whatever situations they have. If he doesn't take heed to this, then it really will be a major issue in their marriage.
Or she's just gonna snap on him and hey, and that'll be what it is.
And you know what? And I don't have any bones about Katina feeling like she needs to say what she needs to say, because she's gonna say it
and will.
But one more thing that I wanted to add about Olajuwon, and we said it in our last review, is that Olajuwon, he doesn't read the room. He doesn't read the room well. And so like I said, I think this is definitely going to be a issue when it comes to, their marriage.
Well, we will definitely see.
Yeah.
All right. Moving right along. Who's up next?
We have Noi and Steve.
Oh, goodness. Now, Noi and Steve, Noi is still definitely showing her hopeless romantic side. They are settling in and bonding on their honeymoon. They get together and go on an outdoor adventure and head to the waterfall, which, of course, is definitely right up Steve's alley, because he loves to do outdoor activities. He loves adventures. He's already said that. He likes nature. And so I think Noi, who may not be that in tune with nature, she was with it because Steve was with it. And she went out there with them. They had an enjoyable time. She was a little bit afraid as well, but they went and they ended up enjoying it.
Yeah. So Steve decides to show Noi how to float in water. She was a little apprehensive about putting her head in the water. But she adjusted. And so Noi said that she felt safe and she felt loved by Steve. And Steve said that he thought they had fun.
Noi is so in love until that rent is due. But anyway, next up.
Ma'am. So next we see Chris and Alyssa, and they decide to go and play tennis.
Okay. I have to give so much credit to Chris, because if there's a silver lining to be found on the dark cloud known as Alyssa, this guy is constantly finding it. I mean, he's still driven to make this process work. He's still in it. He still gives her so much grace despite her attitude and her actions and the things that she says. And so, they're out, they're playing tennis, they're messing around with the tennis balls, what have you. He's trying to tap in with her a little bit, and he's like, she seems like she's a fun person. He's still complimenting her as they're going back and forth. But as soon as he starts to want to get into the conversation about their marriage, Alyssa, in true Alyssa fashion, wants him to back down and walks away.
Yeah. And the experts, Pastor Cal says that they have been monitoring the relationships, and that they decided to pick an activity that is less intrusive. So they picked tennis for Chris and Alyssa to participate in. And so, Chris says on paper, he said she's a great fit, but, it's still not working out. And Alyssa is saying that she's trying to be optimistic, which it is coming off that she's a little bit delusional, because she's saying that, she's being optimistic, but her actions say different, which is definitely a form of gaslighting. And so then they start talking about the apartment, moving into the apartment. And so Alyssa says that she doesn't feel comfortable moving in the apartment with Chris. And so I'm confused, because I'm trying to figure out, like, you've watched these seasons of Married at First Sight. You knew it was coming. So I'm trying to figure out, like, how in the world did you feel like you were not going to move in this apartment with Chris? And so Alyssa cuts Chris off and states that she doesn't want to be committed. And she feels like Chris made a decision to move in the apartment without her, which I'm trying to figure out how she came to this conclusion, because they're married and they're supposed to move in the apartment together. Here's my thoughts. I really honestly think that she looked at season 13, and because there were so many couples that were going back to their apartments, I really think that she thought that she could kind of skate through this season with moving into the apartment and they coming back and forth, and that she didn't have to break her contract. I think that's what she's trying to do.
Yeah, confusion is definitely right, because it confused me. I don't know where Alyssa is coming up with these things from. Maybe she does think she has a cheat code, from those prior seasons and seeing that, or there's been a little buzz and a little talk on social media about Alyssa having been on The Bachelor and now coming to this show.
Right.
It's just starting to feel like a strategy to be on camera, and it's all unfortunately in this show's case at Chris's expense, because she has put him in the worst position. She's saying that she's in a bad position, but really it's Chris.
Yeah, she said that she felt like it was not fair. And I didn't like the fact that she pointed out that she felt like Chris was being aggressive. She pointed at him while he was pointing at something and said he even points aggressively. So she's trying to create this narrative that this is a hostile environment for her. And so I'm thinking that she's trying to get the producers to either not have him move into an apartment or trying to swindle her way into having 2 apartments. But we're going to see later on. I don't think that's what's going to be the case. And I think the producers are going to have something to say to her about that.
And I would think that they would need to, because at this point, all the tears that she is shedding and the whole narrative of I'm a victim and what about me, it just so shows exactly how selfish Alyssa is, and how as many times as she says that she's not in this process for this process. And I personally, for one, don't believe a thing that comes out of Miss Lady's mouth. But anyway, moving on.
Agreed. So next we see Olajuwon and Katina meet up with Michael and Jasmina. And I have to be honest and say, I can see that Jasmina's energy has just really shifted. And so I don't want to bash her too much, because I don't know how I would respond with just being on a trip with a stranger and he's talking to me very rudely. His tone, I'm not used to it. So that may be why her energy has shifted. But Michael says that, they have a lot in common and that they're very opinionated, which we said in the last review that they both need to stand down. Like, in order for this relationship to work, they're going to have to work on their communication skills and know each other's communication styles and know when to not engage into into an argument.
Right, because at the end of it all, besides a perspective of how someone talked to me, or if someone cut me off, or what was said or how it was said, I'm looking at you and I'm looking at the TV and I'm thinking, I still just don't really know what they're fighting about. What are they really fighting for? And so, they do keep talking to Jasmina, and she will constantly refer to communication as a barrier. But I do like that Michael is putting himself out there. I'm seeing him more and more opening up, being self-aware. He's saying, I notice these things, I acknowledge these things, I'm going to work on them. So I hope that she starts to work with him while he works on them.
Yeah, he's being very vulnerable. And then we also see that Olajuwon and talks about pushing his wife, and they're kind of telling Olajuwon like she may not want to be pushed. So back off just a little bit.
Yeah, but I like this whole double date in this scenario before they get ready to go off into the apartments. I think having those friendships and, them having friends to talk to outside of the spouse. Right. They're all in this process. So, they're all learning and growing and working. Right. So it's good to see them meeting up like that.
Yeah, I agree. And nobody else is going to understand this process like the people who are in the process with you. Yep. True. So next we see Mark and Lindsay, and they're getting massages.
And those massages were well deserved and right on time because unfortunately, Mark is dealing with potentially being evicted. They have a session with Lindsay, and she says, Mark's landlord is constantly contacting him, calling them, sending emails, sending messages, all of these things about the fact that his lease is being changed, and there is a rule now for no cats. Mark currently has 2 cats, and it's like, what's going to happen when they return back? And Lindsay is a little perturbed because she says, she knows that this landlord is close to Mark in a way, somewhat similar to a mother figure. And knowing that he's newly married, trying to get to know his new wife, he's on his honeymoon, why contact him with this now? And so she steps up, and it's just like, this is all out of order. She's not happy with it. So I think those massages really help them, hopefully help them relieve a lot of the stress and tension just coming from that situation that they know that he's going to have to face back home.
Yeah, it appears that there's no boundaries between Mark and his landlord. And not only that does he have 2 cats, but Lindsay has 3, which means there would be 5 cats in the apartment. But the landlord knows they're on their honeymoon. So this is just really unprofessional. And I wonder if she is feeling a little bit jealous that, Mark is on this honeymoon with Lindsay. And so Lindsay says that she is Mama Bear. And so she was like, you're just going to move in with me. And I have to say, Mark looked like he was halfway scared.
Well, yeah, because, I get it. It's a new day. And the Lindsay that I'm seeing, and I may even say this more than once, I agree with her on some things. And I'm almost shocked to find myself, first of all, saying I agree with Lindsay because she has been kind of off the wall in some scenarios. But the Lindsay that's showing up now is looking better. She's looking more focused. She's putting herself out there as far as her role as a newlywed and a wife.
Right.
So I like what I see coming from her. I think that, her taking charge may have just, like you said, again, made Mark pause because when they talked to him later, he said, I am just not used to anyone caring for me and taking over. And we know his situation from previous episodes, how he's caretaker for his mom and things like that. So that's a learning curve for him to learn to let someone assist.
I totally agree. So now we see Chris and Alyssa again. And so we see Chris talking to his sister. And his sister is basically saying, listen, you need to cut your losses. He's explaining to his sister that Alyssa is not engaging in any type of conversation. And that they talk about the conversations that was had at the reception. And the sister mentions that Lindsay's mom says that she needs someone like Chris. We said this in our previous reviews that she can't see it, that she needs someone like Chris that's going to really, and I'm just going to be frank, put up with her mess because it takes a patient person to really just kind of be like, listen, hey, I understand you're not getting your way. Let's talk about this. I'm willing to work with you. And that's exactly what he's been doing. I think she's focused more on the physical, but she can't really see the internal, like his personality, which really sticks out. And so I wonder if she's really even mature and even ready for marriage.
She's such a brat. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's just the term that kept popping up in my head, seeing the way that this lady acted. And I think that this conversation that Chris had with his sister was so vital. Yeah. Because although he has been doing the right things, he has been positive, he has been committed, it's only so much anyone can take. Right. And I think hearing that perspective from his sister is going to resonate from that point on as he deals with Alyssa in this episode.
Yeah, and so we see Alyssa talking to production, and she says she's sick of being the good person. And so I think production asked her if she wants to talk to him, and she says she doesn't want to talk to him. She says that she hates him. And then she calls Chris a shitty car salesman that sells houses. and doesn't think Chris should move into the apartment. Boy, what do you think about this?
You know what? I am so glad that it's Chris and it's not me. Because if I had to deal with someone like Alyssa, I would have had some choice words, some choice hand gestures, a lot of choice things for her. But, you know, for her to use such a strong word as to say that she hates Chris and then to insult his profession by saying he's a used car salesman that sells houses. Newsflash, either you sell cars and you're a car salesman or you sell houses and you're a realtor. They are not the same thing. So again, that immaturity, that brattiness, all of that is showing up. And of course the waterworks are on and she is crying yet again to the producers. As you said, she's building her case for sympathy in that she wants to find any way to set a foundation to say she just can't tolerate living in the same space with him.
Right.
Girl.
We see you. And so, and watching the after party with Keisha Knight Pullum, Lindsay and Chris mentions that when they went to go purchase the wedding certificates or the marriage licenses, Alyssa was on the phone with her attorneys. And so I'm guessing that the attorneys was like, listen, you're in a contract, and unless this is a hostile environment or you have reason to really get out of this situation, you're going to have to fulfill your obligations. And so that's why I think that she's acting the way that she's acting, because other than that, she has to create this narrative to say, this is why I am breaking my contract. And so production tells her, it says, this is, you know, you're going to have to make a decision soon. This is married at first sight, not single at first sight. And then she said that she clearly says, I don't care about anybody else. I care about me. And that to me was like a huge statement that I heard her say, because then it really resonates, like why she's really there.
Big old red flag. But you know, I want to give my shout out to this member of production. He's a guy, a black male. I don't know if I've seen him before, but he had to step in and he had to take charge.
Right.
He told her, just like you said, this is not a single show. This is a married show. And also, as she steadily begs for time to make a decision, he said, okay, we know you need to make a decision and you need time, but it has to be soon, S-O-O-N, soon, honey.
Right.
Come on with it and let it be known how you plan to move forward, because it's just almost ridiculous at this point. And I think, you know, for someone to be that self-centered, I don't know what she's pursuing long term, if she wants to be in reality television, be an actress, something of that sort, and she's just using this show as an entryway. But again, you have it all at Chris's expense.
I don't know who's worse, her or Mirla, because Mirla just, you know, she pretended the whole time. She pretended the whole time. And then Alyssa is just saying it up front. So I don't know who's worse. Like would we prefer Mirla to go through this whole process and convince us that she likes, you know, Gil, and then only to say that I don't want to be with you at the end? Or do we appreciate Alyssa? Well, Alyssa is really not being forthcoming. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's really
sitting on the edge of the fence.
Yeah, she's sitting on the fence. She's not saying it. I think she's trying to push him to say it.
Oh, yes.
So that she doesn't have to pay out any obligation to this contract. So that's what I think she's trying to do. But we can see that she doesn't want to be with him. It's just the way that she's going about it, and not being upfront and saying, I'm not attracted to you. I don't want to be with you. Which leads us into our next conversation, because Jasmina, Katina, and Alyssa meet up.
Yes, so the girls are sitting out on the beach. They're all hanging out, and they just kind of start out, you know, with a little small talk. How are things going? And so immediately, I think, to continue with the foundation that she's trying to set, Alyssa just goes into her issues and the shortcomings of what has happened to her, and expressing how she just feels like this hasn't gone right for her. And also she refers back to the conversations that she had with Chris's family and friends to tell her, about some of his traits to be cautionary about. And so Katina reads her pretty much and says, they may have given you this information, but what's very important for you to do is to get to know him and form that opinion for yourself. And I think those words of advice were golden for Alyssa, and she couldn't even dispute it. She had to kind of just back down because she knows that she hasn't given Chris that courtesy. And so I am glad that Katina just went ahead and cut straight to the chase and let her know, hey girl, hey, I like you or whatever, but I don't think it's totally right for you to do that to him.
Yeah, it definitely shows that Katina has a high emotional intelligence. And so she basically tells Alyssa, listen, you take what the family has said and you put it in the back of your mind, but you take the time to get to know people for who they are. And I was really saying to myself, I hope that Jasmina is listening, because it also seems like that she's gotten into a place where she's pretty much fixed on what Michael's sisters have said about him, like this is who he is. But I don't think that she's looking at the fact that he is very self-aware, he's being very vulnerable, and he's saying that he needs to work on it. And so I think, again, she's going to have to shift her mindset in order for this relationship to work. He seems like on camera, like he is like really containing himself. I really want to see what these conversations look like outside of, the cameras, because I'm like, well, what's going on? Like, what really went on? You know what I'm saying? To really make her shut down the way that she shut down. But so Alyssa is saying that she's tried just like everybody else, and she has not put in any effort. Hasn't put in any effort, and she's definitely saying, like, I can't believe that this has happened to me. Why has this happened to me?
Yeah. She just keeps on with her reference of being robbed of the experience. But, she's creating her experience to me by my observation. And she's just doing it the Alyssa way. And I still will not let go of my theory of some alternative agenda until I see otherwise for her.
Right.
So.
And it goes back to what we were saying in our previous reviews, that she's putting all of her stock into, this psychic that has told her this is exactly what you want. And so because this psychic, if things are not lining up the way that she wants things to line up, she's depending on somebody else to tell her what her future looks like. Again, I just don't think that she knows how to make decisions. She's an overthinker.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But, Mark and Lindsay meet up. And again, Lindsay shows up again for the win. And she, like this conversation that her and Mark had, baby, it must have been real deep, because Lindsay was on point this episode. And she tells Chris, she says, you know what, Alyssa, you're exactly what, Alyssa needs, but she's not going to know it until it's, years down the road.
Yeah, she really gives Chris the credit that he deserves. She basically says, I think you're a good person. I know this is my husband beside me, but I think you're probably a good husband.
Right.
She really is complimentary to him. And I think all of these things that are happening are helping to build Chris up to have that confidence to realize and kind of, see Alyssa for what she is, to confront her for what she is, because first the conversation with his sister, and she just gives it to him straight about cut your losses. And now Mark and Lindsay are there. They're telling him, hey, we support you. We see that you're a good person. We see that you're trying. We don't really know what she's doing. And it's very hard to tell. And so it's good to see that he has kind of some nudging in one direction and also some support. And yes, this new Lindsay, okay, we see you, new Lindsay. So far, so good. I just hope it lasts.
So next we see Jasmina and Michael, and they meet at the waterfall as well. And Mike says that they haven't had any fun or any laughter, and that, today's a new day. That particular day was a new day. And Jasmina still seems dry.
Just as dry as a bone. Yeah.
But she did kiss him. So, she is making some effort.
Well, it took a little coaxing for her to get close and kiss him, because as they were sitting there, Michael starts to open up to her, and he tells her about how when he was younger, he went through a situation where he's on the bus, a kid that's older than him says, "Hey, get up, this is my seat." And he's like, okay, this kid is older than me, bigger than me, it's a bullying situation. He gets up, he changes seats, only for him to say that the kid comes back and says, "Oh, that's my seat too," and go on to just, beat him up, kind of really just crush him as a kid. So he opens up to let her know, kind of some of his background, the things that he's gone through. Once again, as you say, Clark, she needs to pick up what he's putting down. He's trying to let her know, yeah, I may be a little bit defensive, but I've been through some things, baby. So you've got to meet me in the middle. Yes, you've been through some things too, but just don't think that I got this way, once we said I do. This is based on my childhood and beyond. So come a little bit closer and try to understand me. And she gives him that little dry hug after him, really opening up and giving her that story. So I want you to soften it up a little bit, Jasmina. So, don't just be giving him that little church hug. But anyway, they went on, they decided to explore a little bit, looked at getting into the water. She wasn't a huge fan of it, so it was mostly Michael in the water, but she does finally venture out, and that's when the kiss happens, once they're out on the rocks in the water.
And trauma as a child, or being bullied as a child, can really weigh on people, especially if it hasn't been processed. And so I wonder how that plays in his communication styles, or feeling like he has to defend himself. And so I'm not really sure, but I would love to see more of how this plays out, to see how some of this trauma that he has been through, his dad dying, his mom dying, being bullied as a child, feeling like he has to suppress his emotions and not being able to suppress his emotions, and see how this plays into how he is communicating.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we will see it later. And also, I think she needs to learn it and learn him.
Yeah.
So, but moving right along.
Okay, so next, the couples meet up for dinner.
Oh boy. This dinner. Wow.
All right. So then I think it was Mark that posed the question of, what has everybody learned since they have, or if they've had any tips or whatever since they've been with their spouses. And Michael says that, he's working on how to convey things to his wife. Like, he can still say how he feels. It's his tone and the way that he says things. So I thought that was really good for Michael to say. Elijah Wan says that he can't push his wife. He has to be aware of when to push her and when not to push her. And then when Steve says that, he knows, he feels like knowing knows how he feels, but he has to work on saying it. And I said to myself, you got to be careful with that and building intimacy, because you can't just rely on someone saying, or somebody, or somebody saying, okay, well, he's giving me hugs, he's doing these things for me. That doesn't always equate to someone needing to hear, I care about you. Right. So I thought that was a good win for him. And Mark says that, this is very challenging for him, because now he has so much respect or support right out of the gate. He's never had anyone take care of him. He needs this at that time, because he's taking care of mom and grandma. So I hope Lindsay can just stay the Lindsay that we are seeing in this episode and give this man the support that he really, really needs. And so then Chris brings up moving into the apartment, and Lisa says that she wants to move in first, and then Chris can move in a second. And Chris says, I wasn't aware of this strategy.
Well, And he's really starting to see this thing for what it is. And I like how he stated it, because it is. It's just that, Chris. It is a strategy orchestrated by Alyssa. But as they're going around the table and talking with the other couples as these questions are being asked, you can immediately sense the tension as it is present between Chris and Alyssa. I watched when they showed Chris's face as they talked to the other couples, and I also watched Olajuwon's reaction and Lindsay's reaction as Chris and Alyssa started to talk about their situation. And for her to come out with that in that setting, at that table, in front of everyone, I have to go back to it. She's still building up her victim character. And so as long as it plays in her favor, it's fine. Well, when Chris starts to respond and asks those tough questions, and then he finally just puts it all out and says, okay, are we doing this or are we not doing this? Then she wants to back down and says she can't talk about it. She can't answer it right now. So it's very contradictory. It's almost difficult to watch, because you can tell she's just setting the stage, and she's just kind of setting him up for something, or setting him up to say something or do something, to tarnish his character. And it's, as already been stated, just not fair.
Yeah, I definitely feel like she is trying to create this narrative. But I also feel like she struggles also with just making decisions. And we've said that before. And so when her back is against the wall, she can't say definitively yes or no to something.
Well, she knows she wants to go to that apartment, and she says she wants to be with the girls.
Yeah.
And so she made that decision.
Yeah. But she knows that she has to make a decision. What I'm talking about is that she's not making a definitive decision to say whether she wants to be married or not. Yeah. So she's saying, okay, well, I'm here and I'm putting in effort and I'm even sitting beside you. No, ma'am. And she's saying that, I'm here and I could have flew out yesterday. And Olajuwon came in now see him and Lindsay. They have their moments.
Yeah.
And Olajuwon came right on in and said, listen, it's 60 degrees in Boston. It's 90 degrees in Puerto Rico. What you gonna do?
You knew you were about to fly home, girl.
And so she says that she wants to be here for her friends. And I love the way that Chris was able to articulate his feelings, and he just frankly said, listen, I love you guys, but I'm not here for you guys. And he's basically saying, listen, if you give me just an ounce, just 1%, and I can have that. But if you can't give me that 1%, then I can't be in this marriage. He said, he said, I have time. He said, I'm in this for forever.
The rest of my life.
Of my life. So I got time.
Right.
If you just give me 1%. And I said, now who doesn't want a man? They said, listen, baby, I'm here.
They usually want 50% or more.
Man said, give me 1%.
1%?
He said, give me 1%.
Yeah. And I think it really put her on the spot, and it should have. And they also, as a part of the conversation, talked about children and how many children everyone wanted to have. And so they went around the table talking about that. Again, kind of another tense moment there. But it was nice to see the other couples give their account about wanting children. For some reason, Noi wants more children than Steve. Well, which actually doesn't surprise me, because I think the thought of children just means more responsibility for Steve, and he's not that type of guy.
Well, Steve doesn't have a job, so he may be thinking about and you don't know what his plan is. Right. So in order to have 3 kids, you have to be working consistently or have consistent streams of income coming in. So I don't know. But one thing I also like is that Alyssa tried to call Lindsay out, and Lindsay didn't take the bait. So as Alyssa is talking, and she says to she says to Lindsay, don't do that while I'm talking. And Lindsay said, don't do what? I'm not doing anything.
Right. Yeah.
And so we see Mark later on says, thank you, because you had an opportunity to take the bait. You had an opportunity to go back and forth, and she didn't. And what I noticed is while, everybody was talking, Lindsay said she needed a drink, which lets me know she wasn't drinking that night.
Yeah, she's really on the upward track, and she even went as far as to just kind of put her hand up, like, I'm not gonna say anything. But Chris was holding his own. He was defending himself.
He was.
As you said, he said what he was in it for. He said, at one point in his life, he thought that he would just live his life as a single man. He would travel, he would enjoy, he would just live his best life that way until a few years back, he decided he wants to be married. He wants to have the family, he wants to do all that. And so he's very invested in it. Steve did make the offer to send over him and Noy's third kid to babysit, but I don't think that Chris is going to take him up on that.
He didn't say our. He said my third kid.
Oh, he did.
He said my third kid. He didn't say our third kid.
You're right, he did.
And I wondered about that, but that's just me. Okay, and so then we see in the final conversations, we see Chris and Alyssa, and they're sitting down and talking, and Chris asks again about them being together. Alyssa refuses to answer the question and says that she didn't like how he tried to portray her at the table. She didn't like how he was trying to portray her then. She says that she feels like Chris is trying to make her out to be the bad person.
One thing that I find when someone says constantly, I'm not a bad person, who are you trying to convince? Everyone else or yourself? Because if you're a bad person or if you're a good person, whatever it is, your actions are going to show that. And she keeps on saying how I don't want to be portrayed this way on camera. She's very specific about that. She even in some previous conversation has said, I don't want my mom to think that, I'm acting this way. So she's painting this picture. She's making this image. And she could not be moved, though. She could not be broken. He was very specific in how he asked her, and she was very intentional in how she avoided answering.
Around it. And then she had the nerve to tell production, if I don't turn out to look like I am a good person, then I am going to be pissed. To me, if you keep saying that to me says that you're feeling a little bit of guilt.
Oh, yeah.
And you're trying to convince yourself about the actions that you're making because you know that you're not being upfront and honest. Right. And so you have to keep saying this because you have to keep telling yourself, I'm a good person, but yet your actions say differently.
When, mind you, a few hours ago, you were saying you hated the man.
Right.
So what good person talks like that about people?
Right. So Chris says that he confidently knows that Alyssa is not there. And then he just plainly says, listen, if you want to be here with your friends and you want to, you want the apartment, he says, listen, if you want to just be there with your friends and you want to be in the apartment, you can have the apartment.
I would never have given her that option because simply put, she doesn't deserve it. She's been lying and she has been selfish and she has shown herself to not be a willing participant in this process. And I think wanting to get all the perks after the way that she has done things is totally out of line. But we definitely will see because as they close out, everyone's packing up and they have their luggage, honeymoon's over. It's time to get ready to head out and to get ready to go.
Yeah, I'm definitely wondering what's going to happen. Like the experts need to be at the airport.
As soon as they get off the plane. Yeah.
Like y'all put y'all stuff down and come on to let me come over, whatever they do, and let's have a conversation because I'm not sure who's gonna make it after this honeymoon. And so the experts have a lot of work to do. I want them to be a little bit more hands-on this season. And it seems like past season 12, well, really season 11, because we really didn't see them in season 11 with, who was it, Karen and Miles. And that was when the pandemic started. That's when we started to see less of the experts. So they have their work cut out for them.
And so do these couples because, as they looked forward to the next episode. We start to see some conversations between Katina and Olajuwon about what's for dinner and who's going to cook it. We see it looks to be some difficult conversations are going to take place between Steve and Noy, which they need to, because where's the check?
Yes, ma'am. And the honeymoon is over.
Right.
And so I saw on the previews that Noy said, I'm not the one to be around here worried about money and a job.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
And of course, the biggest one to wait to see will be Chris and Alyssa. So,
no, I also saw the preview with Mike and Jasmina, and there's something going on when Mike said he's never lived with a woman, but he has. I think he currently has or had a woman female roommate.
You know
now,
what?
Mike, we've been going to bat for you. Don't disappoint us, Mike.
I know.
We've been trying to support a brother.
That is so true.
No, I'm just interested in seeing everything that goes on. But again, thank you for reviewing and recapping Married at First Sight, Season 14, Episode 6. And we'll see you guys on our next review.